What's up, everyone? I just finished having an in-depth chat with American country singer-songwriter, musician, and proud daughter of the late iconic entertainer Glenn Campbell, Ashley Campbell. This newest episode, we talked about her hometown, Phoenix, Arizona, journey to Nashville, being the youngest of seven siblings, love for playing instruments, career start out, memories with her late father Glenn, how the brain affects music, what she looks for in collaborations, feeling reinvented, reignited, building relationships, when she feels most at home when creating music, typical routines while on the road, guilty pleasures, her happy place, and more. And now, with that being said, here's my conversation with Ashley. Ashley, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. It's such an honor.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
I mean, we were talking right before we got the interview started about you getting over the jet lag. How is it coming back from touring and those things like that, and then finally getting the time to settle down and really get acclimated back to the non-touring life, as they would say.
It's nice to get back into a set routine. That's something I miss the most when I'm on tour is like a workout routine and being able to control my diet. Because when you're on the road, you have weird hours and you're often eating when you can, where you can. So yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me more about like what your usual routine is when you're on tour.
Um, Gosh, depends on the tour. Lately, we've just been doing a lot in the UK, so driving everywhere. Um, yeah, drive to the gig, check into the hotel, go do sound check, find some awesome dinner. I love finding little gems in the UK for dinner. Like my favorite one so far has been in Cambridge. We found this amazing Chinese noodle joint right across the street from one of the venues, and my partner and I still talk about it. We're like, we got to go back to Cambridge just for the noodles.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say your guilty pleasure would be?
Oh gosh, on tour or just in general?
Or just in general? I think it like I've been curious on, I've been asking a lot of my guests about what their favorite eateries are and the places that they live in. But for you, I guess for touring wise or in general, what are some of the guilty pleasures that you're kind of craving right now?
Um, let's see. Well, right now I'm craving vegetables because I've been indulging in all my guilty pleasures. Just got back from Ireland and I drink Guinness like nonstop when I'm in Ireland. It's like it's just a regular thing. It's so delicious. So that's definitely a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And your hometown, Phoenix, Arizona. Talk to me about being born or raised there.
It was great. I had a relatively normal childhood, for being someone from a kind of celebrities family. My mom and dad moved us to Arizona when before my brothers and I were born because my mom wanted to get us out of the entertainment industry so that we would kind of have a little bit more normalcy as opposed to growing up putting on any airs or anything like that. So it was great. I have a lot of good friends that I still keep in contact with.
Absolutely. And do you ever feel like those moments where you finally get to connect with old friends that you haven't seen in a long time and that reunion feeling that just overcomes you and you kind of feel this like sort of sense of, I guess, close connection now when you do rejoin with those people.
Yeah, I think so. I've got one friend that she's been one of my best friends since we were in preschool. So she's definitely my oldest friend. And it's crazy thinking back on those memories. It just seems like it's another lifetime ago. It's weird how time works in our brains.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're the youngest of seven siblings. Tell me about what that feels like just to be the youngest out of the whole family.
Um, it's fine. I don't know anything else. I enjoyed being the youngest and being the only girl. I mean, I'm not the only girl total, but growing up, with my mom and my dad, I had two brothers, so um, I never had to share a room with my brothers had to share a room when they were little. Um, yeah, I feel like I had a really special relationship with my dad. as well, and my mom because I was the baby. So
Yeah, and would you say that your family was musically, I guess, musically inclined, I guess, growing up? Because obviously your dad is the icon of country music artist, and now that you're following in his footsteps and living out what he really cherished all his life, talk to me about what that is like in your family. Is it musical?
yeah, I mean, music has always just been a normal part of our lives. So it just felt like as natural as breathing and walking. My brothers and I started playing piano when we were about 6 years old. Um, and I didn't start playing guitar till I was about 15. My dad kind of just let us get into it if we wanted to. Nothing was forced on us, but we were around it all the time, watching him perform.
Absolutely. And you just talked about your relationship with your dad and also your mom, but I guess that connection with your dad is even more closer, I guess, because of how much time you guys toured together and really played songs together and cherished those memories. What would, if there was any sort of memories that get stuck inside your brain and really resonate with you the most, what would those be?
Um, I mean, everything from little moments on stage, like especially, when I was helping him through his struggle with Alzheimer's, but little moments on stage when he would look at me, look for something familiar on stage and his eyes would lock on me and he would smile. That was pretty great. But some of my favorite moments with him were just at home. Like if I was playing guitar in a room, he'd walk through and he'd be interested and we'd start talking about the song and he might show me a different way to play it or something like that. So just really normal everyday stuff.
Yeah, certainly. And what were there any like stories that he would share with you about his time as a musician or just an artist in general that really resonated with you and still resonate with you today?
Yeah, he was always very much uh his own boss. He told me stories about sometimes when his record label would try and get him to go and steer him in a different direction or get him to record a song that he wasn't passionate about. And, at one point he even did. He walked away. He just said, if I can't do what the music that I want to do, then I'm not going to do it with you. I think that was for Highwayman. He loved Jimmy Webb so much. So when they told him they wanted to record My Sharona instead of Highwayman, he walked out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And honestly, people who look at your family and they say, okay, well, we mostly know the Campbell family because of Glenn, and Glenn the artist in a way. But people don't understand the fact that, he was a family man, and he really cherished the memories with you and the entire family. And obviously him being a dad, like that's something that I feel like people will not understand a lot of the times because there are people who are considered celebrities, so to speak. But who was Glenn as a dad?
He I It's funny. I never remember him being gone very much, even though he was touring a lot. He was definitely home more than he was for his previous marriages and children when they were growing up. But he made us a priority and he loved being with us. Like I never felt like he didn't want me around, which is really something impressive. And when you think about how difficult parenting is, sometimes you want a moment alone. But anytime he laid eyes on me or my brothers, it was come here, I want to hang out with you as opposed to like, I'm busy now. I can't. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually going through some videos of your performances together with your family and your dad. And one of the most favorite performances I've seen of you and your dad was dueling banjos. That was so cool just to see him kind of just have fun on stage and just be loose and be, the fun-loving person he is instead of, the I guess the stay-at-home dad or those sort of things. what was those sort of memories like for you when you're performing with your dad on stage?
Well, it was definitely a unique experience because by the time I started performing with him, he was, really starting to be overtaken by his Alzheimer's disease. So we had to curate the show in a way that it was reigniting old memories for him because those were the things that go last with Alzheimer's. So dueling banjos was something that he used to do in his shows back in his heyday with Carl Jackson, and I was, I thought it'd be fun, so we did it, and it was interesting because with the Alzheimer's, you also can't generally deviate from the form like you would normally when you're improvising with someone. Every once in a while, he would do something out of the blue that wasn't part of the set thing that we did, and those were really special moments, those surprise moments when you're with someone who has Alzheimer's. But it was really fun. I loved having fun within those parameters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm gonna go back to obviously how you kind of started. Can you tell me briefly about how you first got your career started and how it's gotten to this point?
Let's see. I had no intention of going into music professionally, all throughout college, even my whole life. I wanted to be an actress and I loved musical theater. So I was a theater major at Pepperdine University in Malibu. And my junior year, I started playing banjo. And when I graduated, my dad was going on tour to Australia and New Zealand. And I asked if I could come along as a vacation. And he said, well, now that you play banjo, why don't you play On Gentle on My Mind? And I thought, oh, cool, just one song, that'd be fun. And yeah, I can do that, I guess. I was just starting out, so I wasn't great at banjo yet, but I could definitely hold my own up there. Um, but after that, it kind of snowballed. His musical director said, well, she plays piano too. I've been wanting someone to play the strings parts on a keyboard for a long time. So then I had to learn all the songs, and I just enjoyed touring so much. I stayed in the band, and then it snowballed into what everyone knows from the documentary as the goodbye tour and the Alzheimer's announcement. And yeah, here I am. I fell in love with music and never looked back, and now I live in Nashville, and I've got two original records out of my own and a third on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was that transition like from going from born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, then to moving to Nashville to sort of, I guess, lay some roots down and really immerse yourself in the music scene there because honestly Nashville is Music City. So what was it like for you just to make that transition from a place like Arizona then to go into Nashville?
Well, in between there, I lived in LA for about 8 years. So it seems like a pretty easy transition because Phoenix is a pretty, uh, I mean, it's different now, of course, but when I was growing up, I saw Phoenix as kind of a sleepy city, not tons going on culturally, really, as far as the arts and things like that, for my taste. And so I moved to LA, and that was super exciting. And I was jumping into the Hollywood improv scene for a couple of years, and then after immersing myself in music, touring with my dad, traveling everywhere, and we visited Nashville a couple of times, and just seemed like the place to be, to write songs and to pursue my own career in country music. Um, and it was a cool transition. Nashville felt like it had all the excitement of LA, but not as complicated, not as many people, and people were definitely nicer on the outside, or at least at the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think that like a lot of things like people who move from LA to Nashville and whatever, and people can say that well, LA is such a famous place and there's probably like just celebrities driving in cars or walking down the street all the time. That's not necessarily true in any facet of it. But I think for you, it's such a cool thing because I remember you got into the comedy field. What was that part of your life with?
I did a couple years of classes at the Groundling School on Melrose, and I was on the improv troupe at Pepperdine University. So actually, for a short time of mine, it was a big goal to try and make it on Saturday Night Live. But I joined a sketch comedy troupe um, towards the end of my college years in Hollywood, and I started writing sketches, which instead of just improvising and writing comedy and writing a script, I really became interested in that. And I was a staff writer on a group called Fries on the Side. And it's interesting how that transitioned into my songwriting as well. Like, I don't think I'd be as good of a songwriter if I hadn't done all that sketch writing training.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're talking about sketch writing and those things, and you're talking about the improv part of your life, what did those like experiences in LA teach you that now you hold close to your heart now that you're living in Nashville?
Um, well, it's just so important to work well with others. Um, so in just live music, in improvisation, there's a term called yes and, as opposed, so you're always listening and you're always aware of what the other person's doing, and you're accepting what they do and then adding on to that, and then it's nice back and forth. So that works really well with live music. And then also for sketch writing, it's just storytelling. It might have some comedy put into it, but some of my songs have some comedic elements. But it's all just storytelling, whether it's comedy or drama. So that definitely helps me um, when I craft a song.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me back to or I remember John Prine, who wrote In Spite of Ourselves, and there is a comedic element to that song as well. Like she don't like her eggs all runny. She thinks
Hmm.
crossing her legs is funny. Right? Like stuff like that is just absolute genius songwriting, because I feel like a lot of people will write like a lot of depressing songs, and like, it makes your eyes ball, but it's sort of really cool to see artists sort of shift the narrative, I guess, of songwriting now, because I feel like the whole meaning of songwriting has changed dramatically from the time it was before. And a lot of people will say like, well, country music is corny. I don't think that necessarily all country songs are corny, because a lot of it is the truth that's being told in it. It's not like they're sugarcoating a lot of what's happening. So how important is for you when you write songs to put that honest part in it?
It's very important for me. I often, tried. I'm not really a flowery, heady songwriter. I honestly just usually go about writing as if I'm having a conversation with someone, so just as if I'm talking straight to someone's face. Like, that's kind of how I write my songs. Like, I'm telling a story or I'm telling someone something very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me, when I was in college, I studied radio broadcasting, and something that, like I've watched on TV how people do it. And I look at them and I say, man, they're using so much big words, big terms that I don't understand at all. And then when you go to college and you get immersed into that program and they teach you, stop acting like what you see on TV. It's really not what you see there. What we're teaching you is to use words that are conversational. You don't use words, that are big term words, I guess, in a conversation. You're basically writing for the ear. You're not writing for people's eyes and people's attention. And so that correlates well with songwriting, because songwriting is not also writing for the ear, but it's also writing for the truth, and writing for someone to relate to that lyric. It doesn't have to be the entire song. It can be that one word or an entire bar, and that's how it is. So I would really like to explore sort of the honesty behind your music, because it seems like in all of your music, not only is there the comedic elements, but there's also that open book of honesty in some of your lyrics as well. And so how does that come about in your music?
Well, I'm thinking now specifically of my song that I wrote for my dad, Remembering. And I remember saying after I co-wrote that with my friend Kai Welch, and I remember saying literally out loud after we wrote it, like, well, that'll never be on the radio. Like that song was just for me, like I think when you write something just so honest that, you know, it's not for anyone else, you think I just had to write that. Like I think that's when it is for someone else generally. You don't know it yet, but um, if you can communicate genuinely an idea or a feeling, whether it's the exact feeling that someone else might have or not, but as long as it's true to you, then it's going to relate, someone else is going to relate to it and apply it to their own specific situation or feeling.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking this, but why was it important for you to write that song "Remembering"?
I started that song, so I was right in the transition point of moving from LA to Nashville. The tour had ended with my dad, and he was still, I was still living at home in Malibu with them, helping care for him because he needed 24/7 attention and, just to make sure he was okay and that he didn't get hurt or anything. And yeah, I remember one night after he went to bed and I started playing that intro walk down in C, and I was just thinking about my dad and how my relationship had changed, from being a little girl, always being his little baby girl, and him taking care of me and me always looking up to him, to kind of the opposite. Like now I was taking care of him and now he was scared and confused, and I was helping him make sense of the world. So that's where the idea budded from.
Yeah, and it seems like within, because I've been keeping track on some of your Insta posts, and obviously you seem like you still have that part of you that still hasn't let go of dad yet. And obviously that's understandable. I think everybody can understand why people feel that it's such an important piece to their life and they carry their legacy on like that. And so when you think about your dad and obviously the song Remembering, Alzheimer's, you're very, I guess, clear on making awareness for Alzheimer's now. And obviously you're very clear on how the brain affects music. Um, can you talk to me more about why you felt that was such an important aspect for you to talk about how sort of the brain can impact the music that people write?
Um, well, I mean, I've seen it firsthand. On the goodbye tour, his Alzheimer's was progressing. And you would see it mostly in when he was off stage, when he was trying to just live daily life. But then he would get on stage and some shows, you might not even know anything was wrong. And we just thought that was so incredible. And I think, and I know from science, that music accesses a very special part of the brain, and it also makes connections between the right and left side of the brain. It makes connections to memories. It triggers function. Um, it lights you up, and I think that's so important, especially with dementia patients. For keeping them with us longer. Kind of like you don't use it, you lose it. So just keeping connections going, whatever that may be for the person struggling with dementia. I mean, music's great. Everyone has a connection to music, whether you play music and sing or whether you just enjoy music. Everyone has a very deep personal connection to music, one way or another. So I think it's super important in therapy and care for all of us, really, whether you have Alzheimer's or not.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, because my parents work in nursing homes and they deal with people who have those issues or even worse. And it's a very traumatic thing to go through. It's not an easy thing to navigate through, and obviously, with your dad, it just seems like, and I don't want to make this come off in a very negative way, but I want to really ask you, do you still find these moments tough without your dad?
I mean, it's like with any loss, It's the first major loss I've experienced in my life, you know. It ebbs and flows, you know. Sometimes you'll just a memory or something will remind you of him and it'll bring tears to your eyes, you know. Or sometimes it's just always there with you, you know. You just learn to live with it. Um, yeah. I try and think more positive memories and like to make it so that I don't mind. It's not like I'm trying to not think about him. I like to think whenever I do think of him, I want it to bring me joy and positivity, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we move to the lighter side of this interview, I want to ask you, when you're making music, when do you feel most at home when you're creating records and stuff like that?
I mean, sometimes when you're recording a song, you just feel the magic, like when the take was good. Like for this last record I did, it's a duo record with my boyfriend and musical partner Thor Jensen. We have a duo called Campbell Jensen, and we did a really special thing. We decided to rent out a 250-year-old cottage in Northern Ireland and do an acoustic duo record. And we have this Irish artist that we're really big fans of named Rachel Grace. And we thought it'd be amazing to bring her in for a song. So she came in for the day and we did this. It's really simple, just guitar and banjo. It's a beautiful, simple love song. And we did three-part harmony most of the way through. And we sang it live together. And I think for me, the part that gives me the chills when I'm recording or singing, performing live is when you hear yourself combined with the other people around you. It's just something really special about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're collaborating with people, what would you say is the key when you're collaborating? What are you looking for in collaborations?
Honestly, I want to collaborate with people that I'm a fan of, you know, like Rachel Grace in particular. I'm just such a huge fan of her voice and her songwriting. She's an incredible piano player. I think she's going major places. But yeah, like even my band that I play with in Nashville, I'm huge fans of all of them. And I feel privileged to get to play music with them. And when I'm playing with them on stage, I'm enjoying hearing them and watching them as well. So I think that's one of the most important things someone in music can have is to be a fan of the people you're working with.
Yeah, and would you say would you say music would be your happy place in terms of well, in general, would you say music is your happy place?
Absolutely. Especially, you know, making music with other people. Like it's one thing to just sit and play in my room or do a solo show, but magic happens for me when I'm improvising, when I'm working with other people. That's the reason I love improv comedy too, you know. You're creating something that you couldn't do on your own. And I just love that.
Absolutely. And so, as we're gonna be wrapping up this interview in a few minutes, I'm gonna ask you these last challenging questions because I've asked these to some of my other guests that I've had on, and it's given them a challenge to answer it, but they've answered it in a really honest manner, I guess. So here are the questions. What is a personal experience that has reshaped your view on music?
Honestly, let's see, this was in 2019 and I was going through kind of a little bit of a crisis. Like I kind of lost a little bit of my spark um for making music. Like I was worried about finances. I was really had a lot of anxiety about, oh my gosh, I have to make money, but I don't want to do music to have to make money. You know, that's not what music's about. And I was just really having this kind of existential crisis about it. Um, and I was asked by Ben Folds, who is one of my all-time heroes, to come and play banjo on a couple songs for one of his shows in where was it? In Portland, Oregon. And it just totally reignited my flame, like to see his approach, you know, someone who's been doing it for so many years, like, and to get to be around that energy, it it just reminded me why I do it in the first place. So that was really special for me. and always will be. You know, I do music because I love it, because it's fun, and because you're putting stardust into other people's skies, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like those memories that you have that you were just mentioning help reinvent you or reignite what your love for music was?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to think, you know, does this bring me joy? You know, or do I have to say this? Do I want people to know this? Do I want people to know something? Um, but yeah, I don't think I could do anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as for my last question, I want to ask you, um, what would you say is the most powerful out of body experience in music?
Ooh. Um, Out of body experience in music. For me, it's singing harmony with other people. Um, like in particular, we did a show at the Ryman Auditorium, a Glenn Campbell tribute show. And my brothers, Cal and Shannon, and I were up on stage singing harmony together to Jimmy Webb's Adios. And it's those moments when you just, everything else disappears and all you hear is this beautiful, these voices reverberating around you and just wrapping you in sonically in their arms. And it's those moments that really take me somewhere.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, it's been such an honor to chat with you today. It really is, and I cannot thank you so much for your time and obviously for sharing a little bit about yourself and also sharing your family story and keeping your dad's legacy alive. It really is a great thing to see someone young as you and really keeping the torch alight and inspiring generations to come.
Well, thanks for having me, Jigme.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. And well, if you have enjoyed this great conversation with me and Ashley here, you can give her a follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. And she's on TikTok as well. For more info, visit ashleycampbellmusic.com. If you'd like to help spread the word about my podcast, please do feel free to share with others. Post about on social media. Any form of support is greatly appreciated. You can follow me on all social media platforms as well. My show is also available on all podcast streaming platforms. I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for tuning into this episode.